Hello everyone, my name is John and I'm here at the Flowgic stand, and today we're presenting new exciting opportunities with Flowgic, but let's start with a general overview of what Flowgic actually is. Okay, so Flowgic is an integration toolkit. Basically what it means is we take a lot of different devices, data sources and other things that we want to talk to in our production environment, and we bring them into one single environment where we can make them talk to each other. I will continue with a quick example. In this example, what we are doing is we're connecting to a newsroom where the journalist can actually populate information into a rundown, and we can preview the information in a list, and then we can send this information from a real-time environment where the journalist is the one that determining the content into a post-production environment where I'm populating an After Effects template with the data that was populated by the journalist. So let's do this one more time. As you can see, I have my tonight schedule and I'm selecting tomorrow from my rundown. I can click update and my data is immediately updated. Now, Flowgic is divided into two main pieces. The left side is the flow view, and this is where I define my logic and how I want my application to behave. And then the right side is my UI view, and this is where I define my user interface and how I want the final user to interact with my application. So, if I zoom in, we can see that every node in this system has inputs and outputs. Inputs are at the top and outputs are at the bottom. Information flows from inputs to outputs, from outputs to the next input, and so on. Now, some of those elements have a visual representation. For example, a list box is visible in my UI view as a list box. Some of those are purely logical elements, which means that they don't have any representation at all. What I can do, after defining my workflow, for example, MOS connection, rundown items, I'm taking the item, pulling the MOS item and pushing it into my After Effects, I can take many UI elements and group them together into one collection. Now, once items go into a collection, they are fully editable, meaning that I can move them around, I can scale them, I can remove them, and so on. So basically, I'm designing my own application and the way it looks. Once I'm done doing that, and I go out of my edit mode, the application is alive, meaning that if I change my rundown, I will see a different list. It communicates with my newsroom system. I can select my story, hit update, and the data is being updated immediately. This application basically was designed to marry two elements that usually don't talk one to another, newsroom and After Effects. Now if I zoom out and remove this because this is just trash, you can see that this entire application is not very big. This is all it takes to make two devices talk to each other. Now, if I open my plugins list, you can see a very big list of different devices that we can talk to, and I can mention the main one. So we are very heavy on data. We can integrate basically with every data source out there. Even if it's an SQL-based database, MySQL, Firebird, MS SQL, and a lower-end databases like Access, and Excel, or we can integrate with the non-SQL databases like XML, like JSON, and all other databases that are coming these days from the web. Now, speaking of web, we can also integrate with many social media networks, including YouTube, Twitter. We can pull RSS feeds, we can pull Instagram, we can pull Facebook, but not only pull, we can also push back to to the social network, meaning that if we have an event or a graphics that we want to snapshot and push it back as a feed, for example, to Twitter, we can do that. So what I'm going to do now is load another example here. In this example, what we can see is a more complex production, but it does a lot more things. So what we're doing here is we're getting a data feed from a provider, third-party provider that's called Opta. Opta is providing a game feed for sports game. Basically, it holds inside a lot of information, not necessarily visible to us as viewers, but it's a big amount of information. Every single move, every single pass, every single foul, goal, and much more. In Flowgic, we have tools to allow a user to filter and visualize this data very easily. So if we look at the UI, we have two teams, Real Madrid and Barcelona. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at one team at the moment and click on passes. So what I'm actually doing is I'm filtering the events of the game related to Real Madrid and only those passes, but not only that, I'm also filtering it by time. So I have a timeline here, and if I run this timeline, you can see that my field is being populated by those events. So these are the relevant events in the range of 5 minutes from the 9th minute. Now, at this moment, we're only getting the data in and visualizing it. Now, the next step would be taking this data and applying it to real environment, where we actually need to use this data for replays or for graphics. So as soon as I will select anything, and you will see that my player, my video server is moving to different points in time, okay? Basically what happens is I'm pulling out the event from the relevant event time code and sending it to my video server. As soon as I hit play, the video server will start running. On top of my video server, I have a graphic render engine which will be populated with the relevant information. So if I stop it, we were looking at passes, but I will stop the passes and look at something more interesting like goals. Okay, so I have one goal here. I can preview the goal. It's by Karim Benzema. So I can now hit play, and here's my play, here's the move, and here's the goal. So if I summarize so far, we taking a custom data feed, we are parsing it, visualizing it for the user, then we send the information to the render engine and to the video server. But if we want to go one step further, what we could do is hit play, take this, and when I click post to Twitter, what actually happens is I'm taking the information and posting it to Twitter directly from my video feed, okay? So now we are taking our data feed, we're using it for real-time graphics, for a video server, and to render the final output into the Twitter feed, and everything from a custom-made GUI. Still, like before, I can go to my edit mode and I can take every single piece of my UI, edit it, move it, and every single piece in this UI actually has a corresponding piece in the logic. So what we're seeing here is an application that was customly built from scratch for the end user to serve a very specific need. Flowgic can operate and talk to many different devices, and by combining different plugins and different nodes together with powerful UI elements, you can basically create any kind of application to address a very specific need of every single task that you have in your broadcasting environment. Thank you.